Hello everyone, I am Dr. Durdana Owaits from Department of Commerce, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. In the last video lecture, we have understood the meaning of public finance. In this video lecture, we are going to understand the difference between public finance and private finance. Although I have given an introduction, but that was a very small introduction. Many people confuse between public finance and private finance. So in this video lecture, we will be discussing the similarities and differences between public finance and private finance. When we talk about private finance deals with the decisions that are taken by individuals or firms regarding all the financial matters like how they are going to receive funds, where they are going to invest these funds, how much they require, and so on. If these questions are answered correctly, it will lead to satisfactions of individuals and firms. And if these questions are not answered correctly, then what happens? Then it will lead to dire consequences. The government is a representation of individuals. So, the government also need to take these similar kinds of decisions that are taken by an individual, like where it will be getting the funds, how it is going to spend these funds, how much budget, how the budget will be prepared, and so on. Similar results will be there. If the questions are answered correctly, it will lead to efficient utilization of resources, equitable income distribution, and macroeconomic stabilization. And if these questions are not answered, the same dire consequences will be there, but the magnitude that will be suffered will be not only by the government but by the whole country. That is the basic difference between public finance and private finance. So we see here that there are some similarities as well as differences. Let's explore these similarities and differences. Coming to similarities first. The first is both individuals and organization, that is public finance and private finance, have got same objective. What is that same objective? That is welfare. Whereas the individual aim for welfare, his own welfare, the organization aims for collective welfare or social welfare, the welfare of all the citizens of the country. Second similarity is rationality. All financial decisions are based on rationality, the concept of rationality. Similarly, both in public finance as well as private finance, the individual as well as government, because they work for the welfare, their welfare, they take decisions that are based on, that are having a rational basis. The third similarity between public finance and private finance is limited resources. Either it be an individual or government, they have limited resources with them. Their income is limited, and with this income they want to have maximum utilization of these resources. Okay. Fourth is repayment of loans. When there is limited income with the government as well as individuals, what happens? If income is less and expenditure is more, what happens? Both will go for loans. Individuals will be taking loans from friends, sometimes institutions. The government also takes loan from general public or organizations or institutions, but both have to mandatorily or obligatorily repay back the loans. That is, even government have to repay back the loans. It can postpone the repayment, but it cannot say that no, I am not going to repay back the loan. That is the fourth similarity between public finance and private finance. Let's move to dissimilarities. The first dissimilarity we see between public finance and private finance is the adjustment of income to expenditure. When you talk about an individual spends money according to his or her income. That is, whatever is the income, that becomes the basis of expenditure. Whereas when we talk about institutions spend according to the expenditure. That is, first they estimate how much subsidies has to be given, how much utilities, facilities have to be given, and based on this they decide how much income should be there. Another reason for this difference is individuals know how much their income will be, but government does not know how much resource it can generate. Second point of difference between public and private finance is the different motive of expenditure. When we talk about private finance, we see that individuals, when they spend money, they want maximum profit. But when government spends on education, on defense, on providing subsidies, food subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, what happens? They are not looking for profit. They are looking for the welfare of the economy. As such, there is a difference between the expenditure or motive of expenditure between the public finance and private finance. That was the second difference. The third difference is the nature of resources. Individuals have a limited source of income. What they might get? They might get salary, they might get some inheritance, they might have many more sources of income. But as compared to government, the income of individual is limited. But the government sources of income are enormous. It has got huge nation, the people from where it can generate revenue through taxes, direct taxes, indirect taxes, fees, fines, profit of public sector organizations, and so on. The second point of difference is in this slide is the principle of equi-marginal utility. Okay? This principle is easy to be followed when we talk about an individual, because individual make subjective choices. So what happens? They can decide easily which things give them more satisfaction, and then they can distribute their expenditure in such a way that all the expenditures may give them the same level of satisfaction. But this is not possible, or let's say it is very difficult when we talk in terms of government expenditure, because it cannot be used when we talk about education, defense, administrative services. Okay. Then next is compulsory characteristics. Compulsory characteristics of repayment of loans and the expenditure. When individuals have crunch, when their income is less and expenditure is more, what happens? What we do? We postpone our expenditure. That okay, maybe next month we will spend, maybe after 3 months, next year. But government cannot postpone their expenditure. Suppose if a tragedy is struck, if there are landslides, can the government postpone that this year we are not going to give subsidies, this year we are not going to give scholarships, this year, or because the revenue is less, we are not going to provide medical aid? No, the government cannot make such claims. Okay, so there is the expenditure has to be made whether there is income or not. Now, next is coercive authority. individuals cannot use coercive authority to generate revenue or take back their money. But government can do. They can use coercive authority in terms of increase in taxes, payment of taxes. They can take measures to ensure that people pay taxes. But same cannot be done by individuals. Otherwise, these individuals will land themselves in trouble. Next point of difference is the budgeting difference. Individuals usually want to have surplus budget. Surplus budget means where they are able to save. That is, they want to keep their expenditure less and in comparison to their income. That is, income is more and expenditure is less, so that they are having some savings. Okay, but governments do not prefer to have a surplus budget. They like to have a deficit budget. Deficit budget means where income is less and expenditure is more. If there is a surplus budget, it will indicate two things. Either when surplus budget, when income is more. If government's budget is a surplus budget, it will indicate firstly, either they have charged more taxes, direct and indirect taxes, and then was required, or they have not spent the money so received through various sources on the welfare of people. So in both the situations, it will have a negative impact. That is why the government does not want to go for deficit budget. Next is long-term consideration. When individuals spend money, they are having a myopic vision regarding future. They want to invest or spend their money in such a way that they get immediate return, or you can say they get return in next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But the government uses far-sighted approach because the government have to serve generations and generations. It is not looking at the current citizens but also the future of the country. As such, any expenditure that has to be made, government makes it with long-term consideration, whereas individuals make this expenditure investment with a short-term vision. Last point of difference is the secrecy and audit. When government makes a budget, it declares and gives publicity of its plan. What is a budget? A budget consists of all the sources of revenue that the government plans to tap and all the areas in which the government wishes to spend money. Okay? Whereas an individual, when they make a budget, they try to keep it very secret. They do not want to tell anyone, even their neighbors, how much they are saving, how much they are investing. That will be even firms. They do not tell how much is their profit, how much they are investing. But government, on the other hand, give huge publicity. Annually, they are open to criticisms. Press are free to comment. So this is the last difference between public finance and private finance. Summarizing, we have discussed 4 similarities between public finance. What are these similarities? That both public finance and private finance are having same objective. Both work on the concept of rationality. Both public finance and private finance have got limited resources, government and individuals, and both government and individuals have to repay the loans. And we have discussed some differences also. What are these differences? We discussed that there is a difference between adjustment of income and expenditure. Both individuals and organizations have got different motives for spending. The nature of resources that are available to individuals and government are different. Principle of equi-marginal utility. It can be applied by individuals but not by government. Next is the compulsory characteristic of expenditure is there with the government but not with individuals. Then coercive authority can be utilized or used by government but not by individuals. There is budgeting difference also. Individuals like to go for surplus budget and government likes to go for deficit budget. Next is long-term consideration. Organizations or individuals go for short-term consideration when they plan for investments or expenditure, but government have got a long-term vision regarding the welfare and future of the citizens as well as the nation. And last point of difference was secrecy and audit. The individuals take huge care of not to disclose their budget, whereas the government publicize its plans, policies and budgets. Okay. So that was all for today's video lecture. Keep learning, keep growing.